Red Bull is everywhere, but have you noticed the strange part? You almost never see a traditional Red Bull commercial. No emotional story ads, no buy Red Bull today, no celebrity testimonials. Yet the brand dominates the energy drink market and built a multi-billion-dollar empire that reaches from sports to music to global media. So how did Red Bull grow into one of the most powerful brands on earth, while basically refusing to advertise like everyone else? Let's break down the exact strategy behind Red Bull's invisible marketing empire and why it works better than anything money could buy. First, let's clear this up. Red Bull does spend money on marketing. In fact, they spend over $1 billion a year doing it. But they're not promoting the drink. They're promoting the feeling, the lifestyle, the adrenaline-soaked identity that comes with the brand. It creates the illusion that Red Bull doesn't advertise because we don't see them on TV trying to sell us a can. Instead, we see them in places no other brand dares to go. While other companies bought TV spots and billboards, Red Bull asked a different question. What if advertising doesn't look like advertising? Here's what they bought instead. An F1 team, a professional soccer team, global breakdancing competitions, dirt bike events, cliff diving tournaments, world-class esports team, and of course, the most insane stunt in human history, a man jumping from the edge of space wearing a Red Bull suit. When Felix Baumgartner stepped off the platform 24 miles above Earth in 2012, the entire planet watched. It wasn't an ad, it was a moment. And Red Bull controlled the whole thing. NASA wasn't trending that day, Coca-Cola wasn't trending, Red Bull was, and all they did was create something too wild to ignore. That one stunt generated hundreds of millions of dollars in free media coverage. News channels covered it, social media exploded, YouTube literally broke records. That's not advertising, that's culture creation. Here's a psychological secret behind why this strategy works better than ads. People ignore ads. We skip them constantly. We skip them instantly, but we don't ignore entertainment. A guy breaking the sound barrier with no plane? You share that. You talk about that. People identify with what they enjoy, not what interrupts them. Red Bull associates itself with peak performance, danger, excitement, and creativity, not by telling you, but by showing you. This makes Red Bull feel less like a drink and more like a membership card into an entire mindset. The live fast, push limits, go harder mindset. That's why teenagers wear Red Bull merch even if they barely drink it. They're not buying a beverage, they're buying identity. Coke sells sugar water, Red Bull sells adrenaline. Red Bull didn't want to rent attention, they wanted to own it. So they built Red Bull TV, Red Bull Media House, Red Bull Records, Red Bull Studios, Red Bull Documentaries, and Red Bull Films. Most companies beg networks to run their ads. Red Bull literally became the network. They went from buying ad space to becoming the place where culture is made. Instead of being one commercial during a broadcast, Red Bull is the entire broadcast. Imagine if Pepsi owned the NFL. That's how deep Red Bull embedded itself into extreme sports and entertainment. This move makes every piece of content they produce, from a 30-second clip to a full documentary, a form of advertising that doesn't feel like advertising at all. Here's the underrated part. By not doing traditional ads, Red Bull created scarcity and status. When a brand isn't constantly begging for your attention, it feels more premium, more iconic, more confident, and more mysterious. It's the same psychology behind luxury brands. Louis Vuitton doesn't buy commercials in between sitcoms. Rolex doesn't buy TikTok ads. Red Bull positioned itself the same way, as something that's just there, central to a culture that seems bigger than the product itself. And that confidence is a marketing weapon. So what's the result of this no advertising strategy? Well, they own one of the most recognizable sports teams in the world. They dominate global extreme sports. They sponsor more athletes than almost any company. They've become a cultural symbol, and they sell over 11 billion cans a year, all because they did what no one else dared to do. Stop acting like a drink and start acting like a culture. Red Bull didn't just create a product. They built an ecosystem where the drink is just one piece of a massive identity machine. So the next time you see Red Bull on a helmet, a car, a wingsuit, remember, that's an ad. That's the strategy. And that's how Red Bull became a global empire without ever looking like they're advertising at all. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Peace.